life is not about overworking yourself. Like, work really hard, give 110% effort, but be realistic with yourself, because there are going to be things that happen that you cannot control. And if you are already maxing yourself out to complete exhaustion, you are going to fail.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Before we dive into today's guest, I want to talk to you guys about Desert Fox Golf. I have recently teamed up with them, and they have some awesome products, including the Phone Caddy. Their Phone Caddy is a golf attachment that holds your phone in a very convenient location for you while you are golfing. If you are like me and like to use a golf app while golfing, then this is just the thing for you. They also have a cigar attachment for you cigar smokers that allows you to set down your cigar while you take a shot. One of my favorite things that they offer is the comical swing aid tumblers that allows you to hold 17 ounces of your favorite drink while you play around a golf. Christmas is approaching, and this is the best time to purchase your loved ones some new golf accessories. They are currently running a deal on their website for the whole holiday season where the tumblers are $20 each, and you can still use the promo code HOLIDAY25 and get your second tumbler for just $15. Don't miss out on this deal. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and make your purchase today. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks podcast. This is episode 135, and before we dive into today's guest, I have a couple things to talk about real quick. We have passed the fall merch drop, but it's not too late to head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some of that merch. You can get it just in time for the holidays. You might want to do some last-minute shopping and need a Christmas gift for the special loved ones. Well, what a better gift than the Roughnecks merch? So head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some merch ASAP. But joining me today is a very special guest who is doing all kinds of different things, it sounds like, and is constantly busy. And I'm glad we're finally able to get her on. But without further ado, Carissa Nickell, welcome to the Roughnecks podcast.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been we were talking a little bit off air about how it's been a long time in the making. I don't know when we originally planned to record, but it's probably been over a month since we originally started talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely over a month. I mean, the holidays, like, just this time of the year is busy in general, but we're both very busy people as it is without the holidays. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but I mean, we're here, so we made it.
Exactly. We're here, but I like to kick off every episode by allowing the guest to kind of give the Roughnecks listeners a little background on who they are. So tell the Roughnecks listeners who Carissa Nickell is.
Okay, cool. I feel like it's kind of hard to answer. I, like you said, obviously do a lot of different things. I'm still really young, so like still also figuring out who I want to be, who I am. But I am currently a senior at Ohio University, studying in a dual major psychology pre-nursing, which is super complicated. So I'll probably get into that later, with a minor in military science. So I am in the Army ROTC program at OU. Side note, we are top 10 in the nation, so no one really knows that, but it's nice to say that. That takes up a lot of my time. They pay for my school in exchange for me to serve as an Army officer when I graduate. So in addition to that, I coach basketball at Athens High School, which is Joe Burrow's alma mater. Go Bengals. I own my own photography business. Recently opened up a photography studio on Court Street in Athens, at OU this semester. And I also work a few other like supervisor positions, and I'm sure there's a few things I'm missing of like other random stuff that I do. But those are kind of the main things. So like, OU senior, Army ROTC, Athens basketball coach, photography business owner, and then have a few other things going on work-wise too. So that's kind of like a nutshell of a lot of things I could probably or will be talking about today. In addition to that, I am the oldest of 6. I'm from just north of Columbus, Ohio, in the Sunbury, Delaware area. But I graduated from high school in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So kind of claim Ohio and Indiana as like where I'm from, just because it's like it's hard to pick one. So go Buckeyes and go Hoosiers. But yeah, that's pretty much like a little intro. Hopefully that's enough information to like get this started.
Holy crap. There is a lot there, and that is, that's crazy because like just like following you on Instagram and stuff, and that's all we've ever like really the only conversations that we've had is through social media and via text. But you're a jack of all trades in a way, but you just have so much going on. One of the things that I really like that you said is, you're a senior in college, and one of the most fun but also most scary years from my experience, because it's like, all right, I am graduating college finally, this is happening, and then you also are like, now I'm in the real world and I got to figure things out. So it's a really tough situation. Something, I don't want to say tough situation, but like it's a scary sometimes, and trying to figure out what's the job, what am I going to do after college, what am I going to do. But what I really liked is you talked about still trying to figure out who I am and who I want to be. And I don't know if we ever truly figure that out. I mean, I think we figure out who we want to be, and I don't know. I guess we do kind of figure it out, but it takes time. But like that's something I really like too, because I feel like too many people sometimes try to jump ahead and like, oh, I have everything figured out. And it's like the truth of the matter is we don't. It's going to take a while to figure out who we are, especially being just a senior in college. But
exactly. Actually, I have a lot I could say to that before we move on. So I'm definitely a more type A personality. Like I'm the type of person that super like life is black and white through like my lenses, and obviously life is not always black and white. There's a lot of gray areas and like things that we go through and things that we try to figure out, and like life is constantly changing. We are constantly changing. We're never the same person. Like each day like experiences mold us and stuff. But I actually in the past year, which I'll get into this more, like a lot has changed. A lot of plans that I had made, and like I said, being type A, like I had a plan A, B, C, and D, and sometimes like life does not go according to our plan, and so you have to be able to like adjust and also kind of not change yourself, but be able to like respond to things in a way that keeps you moving forward, but also like doesn't completely get you off track, if that makes sense. And like everything you just said it's so relevant and something I'm super passionate about, just from my personality, and then having to kind of like adjust to this life stage of transitioning from being a college student to an adult. Well, I mean, I'm already an adult, but being a full-fledged like independent out of school adult. And also realizing that life is constantly changing and we can't always have everything figured out at the same time.
That is one of the things, being, a high school age kid, a college age kid or kid, whatever, it's, we think we want to have it figured out so bad. Like, and I don't know if that changes past that. I'm only like a year and a half out of college. So like, I don't know how much it really changes. Like, we just want to know the answer. Like but the thing that you said, sometimes life doesn't go the way you want it to. I want to change that to, I feel like it's most of the time life doesn't go the way we want it to, but the big thing that you talked about, it's like how you respond. You can't control the circumstances that you are given or the things that happen to you most of the time, but you can control your response. All right, you had a crappy day, fix it. Like change, like have a better day tomorrow. Like you can't control what happened. You just have to continue to grow from that.
Exactly. Oh, I love this. This is like my brain is like I love this conversation already.
But before we get too much further into that, I wanted to ask, like, why OU? Because I mean, we have a lot of listeners that are younger, and I like to give people perspectives on like why choosing the right college is important. And sometimes, I feel like people just kind of jump. Oh, I liked it a lot, but on my first visit. But it's important to like choose the right college, and not just because your best friend or whatever went there, but also like you have to like the school because you're about to spend the next 4 years of your life there, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. So, since I had gone to two different high schools and in completely different states, they were also completely different cultures. So like I went from a smaller rural high school where I had pretty much everything a high school kid could want. Like, I was a varsity athlete from my freshman year on up, like all conference, like, had all the bling, whatever. Had a pretty good group of friends, I guess you could say, like popular jockey type of girl. Like, I had everything at that high school that I wanted. Again, small school. And then I moved to Indiana, and I went to a massive high school there. Like, I think 700 kids a class. Pretty much an NAIA sized high school. It's like NAIA sized college, but it's a high school. That was top in the state in sports and athletics and academics and the arts, like literally like powerhouse. And I kind of like through that experience so young, like learned how to adjust and really realize like, hey, like what do I want to be passionate about? Like, cause you have to reset socially, like in that scenario. And I didn't really know anyone. And when I was a senior at that point, I had like this perspective that maybe some of my peers didn't have of, I'm not going to go down a path that my friends are going on just to be near them. Like, I know the power and the things that can come from getting out of your comfort zone, especially like moving places or trying somewhere that maybe someone else isn't. And so I applied to, I think, over 10 colleges, both mostly in the Midwest. So like lots of big Indiana and Ohio schools. And I eventually had narrowed it down to Purdue, Indiana University, Ohio University, and Bowling Green. And I had it narrowed down to those 4 because those 4 were the schools that had the Army ROTC scholarship that I was vying for. And 3 of those schools had offered me the scholarship. And the scholarship was really hefty. It's a full ride, plus some on top of that if you do well. So obviously, like, I was kind of, once those schools, those 3 eventually were narrowed down, I was like, I'm going to choose the school that financially makes the most sense, but also that I feel the most connected to. And OU ended up being my final choice because their program was ranked top 10 in the nation at the time. We still perform really high, but it was it was an ROTC decision. Because I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this whole Army thing, no clue what I was doing, but if I'm gonna do this Army thing, I want to be one of the best. And OU happened to be one of the best in the nation. And then additionally, out of all those schools, OU was the only school that offered additional scholarship money on top of the full ride if you perform well. And they call it the incentive program. So essentially, you have full tuition covered from the Army scholarship. And then if you do well at OU academically and physically, you can get up to like between $5,000 and $8,000 a semester, depending on your performance and how much funding we have in your pocket. So that can go towards housing, that can go towards food, that can go towards bills. And it's like, as an 18-year-old and knowing that I have the potential to earn that money through a lot of, like hard work, dedication, not screwing around, that was like the biggest thing that drew me to OU, was the financial aspect and the ability or the opportunity to be part of a program that was one of the best in the nation. Now, like, I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what that would mean. And now looking back as a senior, like, I'm totally glad that I chose that. But the other thing was OU just felt like home. I did visit a lot, almost all those colleges that I applied to. Like, it was a lot. Most people do not apply to that many colleges. But OU has this aura about it. I think a lot of Bobcats will talk about this, and it's kind of cringy, but it is very homey. It's in a college town. People are so friendly. It's very safe. Obviously, like, OU is probably most well known for its party scene, its bars. I had no interest in that when I picked it, but I mean, that's honestly why some people pick it, probably a lot more than not.
That's why half the kids from my high school went there, I'll be honest.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a big part of it. But like outside of that, like, it offers so much more, like the community. When if you're not into the party scene, there's so much community there, sober community that you can enjoy, like the small town, the people. It's just beautiful. If you like nature, there's Hocking Hills is like a 30-minute drive from campus. Like, can just go hike, go see waterfalls, rent a pontoon. in the summer. I do that every year for my birthday, and it's super fun. Just go out on the lake. Like it's a very special place. But like ultimately, I made a decision because of scholarship and wanting to be the best in what I was going into. And most of my friends ended up going to Purdue or Indiana University. And some of them have since graduated, some of them are still there, and I still visit them. It's like I still get to see like little bits and pieces of like, hey, like this is what life would be like as a Boilermaker or as a Hoosier. And still like super glad and confident that I chose OU. So it's kind of like a when you know, but at the same time you have to be practical in making that decision, especially with the money aspect. Like I don't think it's super common for a lot of 18-year-olds to think about student debt. But like if you can go somewhere that is literally paying you to come to their school and it's a decent school, or you're going to get a degree there for free, like that's a huge deal. And a lot of kids don't have the opportunity. And so if you do have the opportunity, like definitely like heavily consider that place. Like I'm very financially blessed to be in the position that I am so young, and it has actually helped me a lot with like starting a business so young and being able to have the money to start a business. So that's kind of like my piece of advice. Like it's pretty hefty, and like most people are not going to join Army ROTC, but that's kind of why I chose OU, and those are the backbones of that decision essentially.
The thing you said about student debt, I mean, there's a lot of notes that I just wrote down, but the one thing that I really want to talk about is the thing you said about student debt. Because most 18-year-olds, like, that's not in our mind. We're like, oh, I'm
No.
going to go party. Oh, I'm going to go play football at a D3 school,
Yeah.
aka me. That's what I was like. I'm going to go play 4 more years of football. But I wasn't thinking, I was like, I'll figure out the money aspect later.
Yeah.
Here I am a year and a half after college, paying these loans back, going, man, this sucks. Not that I regret going there. I enjoyed every moment I had at Ohio Wesleyan, but it was one of those that I was like, this is very like it stresses you out a little bit come
Yeah.
time to pay those loans back. And you know, I won't say like I live comfortably, but like it cuts down on some of the stuff that I want to do, like money I want to put into the podcast, money I want to put into the house, whatever it is, because of the fact that I like, you know, I have to pay these loans back. Like those are the most important things that I have to pay back. And you know, thinking about things financially is hard for an 18-year-old. That's why I'm a big believer anymore. I wish I'd have had like a good finance class in high
Yeah.
school to teach us
Exactly.
how, like, not even necessarily how, but just like to get it on your mind, like, oh, hey, I need to think about my money even though I'm 18 years old. Like, it's
Yes.
very important. You have to think about it because in the future, it could set you up so much better if you just slow down and think a little bit about where you're spending your money. Like, oh, I wish if I'd have put money into like $5 a day or $5 a week into a savings account, what would it do? $5 a
Well,
week isn't that
now, yeah,
much.
exactly. Yeah. And I think another aspect too of like my decision making process that goes with the financial part that most 18-year-olds probably are not dealing with is I moved out at 18. So I made the decision to, as soon as I got my high school diploma, to move out of my parents' house. And I was like, I'm gonna be on my own. So I kind of, in a sense, I essentially shot myself in the foot of like, fast forwarding that process of being financially independent from your parents. So like I didn't really have a choice about like figuring out it's either go active duty and enlist in the military so I can go in the military and then get free college when I get out, or get a scholarship of some sort. And that like forced me to learn the hard way. I mean, I didn't have to ever worry about money like growing up. Like my parents lived very comfortably, and I mean they taught us the value of hard work. Like I always worked a job or a few. But being an 18-year-old saying, hey, sayonara, like I'm going off to college and I'm gonna pay for it myself through a bunch of scholarships and stuff like that, and doing something with the military, like that was scary. It was really ballsy because like I had no clue what I was doing. And I went into OU with hardly any money in my bank account and had to learn the hard way of how to manage that, and like how to figure out how to like pay bills and just do some of that adulting stuff that a lot of 18-year-olds don't do until they like have no choice. So like that's something else is like if you do have parents who are willing to support you, like, definitely take advantage of that. Like, I mean, in a sense, like, thank them, obviously. But if they have provided for you in a sense, like maybe you have a college savings account, use that while you can too. Take that into consideration, because when you hit 22, 23, 24, and you are paying back those loans, or you're just like feeling poor because you probably have other sort of loans like lines of credit, you have a car payment, or you have a credit card, you're going to be like, wow, like I wish I would have thought about this, just because it's like when you're young and you have no choice but to think about that, that's one thing. But then when you mature and start to have to figure it out a few years later, that's another like aspect of it. So it's like just being aware of that, like just being aware and just thinking about it just for a little bit at first, or even like you said, starting a savings account or just getting into like maybe some more proactive money habits is a huge thing to start in college and even before college when you're making those decisions, because it literally can impact the rest of your life, at least the start of your adult life, at least. So yeah, huge thing, huge believer in, being proactive and like thinking for yourself as an adult when you hit that 18, 19-year-old range and you're, trying to figure things out. Like, don't just think about the partying. Don't just think about, like boys and girls at school. Like, be an adult, like step into that role and take the responsibility to be ahead of your peers, essentially. Because it pays off. It totally pays off. No pun intended.
100%. Like, one of the things, like, I look at the people who, I lived at home all through college. Well, not all, like, I went to college and then like would come home and live at college or live at home. But, pretty much a year after college, once I got, back in the job force and got a little bit of money, I was out. Like, I got out of the house. And like you talked about being out at 18, it teaches you things. And that also kind of sometimes like comes from a way we brought up maybe too. Cause like my parents, I remember I didn't have a phone until I could afford to buy one.
Yep.
I paid my bill every time. But it also teaches you that responsibility of like, all right, you're going to have bills in life. What do you have to manage your money? And it's very important. Like, money is something that is not talked about enough, but it's stressed. Like, one of the biggest stresses, and it's one of the things that ruins relationships. It's one of the things that, people like ruin businesses, whatever, is because they don't stress the importance of like handling money. It is very important on how you handle your money. And, it is a learning game every day. Like, we are continuously learning. I don't have it all figured out. Trust me. There's times I have $200 for the week or for 2 weeks, and I figure out how to make it work. Like, you just have to do it. It is what it is. But, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't put in those tough situations, especially in college, where you're like, all right, I have $20 to last me the week. How am I going to do this?
How am I gonna...
Yeah, like, how am I going to feed myself? How am I going to get gas? How am I going to pay my phone bill? You learn how to kind of work your way through that.
Yeah, and I think there's another aspect of that people don't talk about this enough either, because I think in a sense we've kind of gotten a little bit complacent, maybe lazy, like, or just our generation, but your habits, just your lifestyle habits and your lifestyle in general ties in with your financial health. So what I mean by that is a lot of my friends are straight up nicotine addicts. Straight up, like, they have to have their something to smoke. And I could not imagine how much money they spend going to the vape shop. And then I'll be like, hey, do you like want to go out to dinner? And they'll be like, I literally have like $10 in my bank account. Can we wait till I get paid? And I'm like, bro, it's because you're like spending all this money on alcohol or like, nicotine or whatever habits you have. And obviously, like, you can have more healthy habits. And I know I'm not dogging on anyone who smokes, because like most of my friends do it. Like, it's normal for our society, but like you can have healthy habits that also cost you a bunch of money. So like something that I've had to figure out recently is like, I have been unknowingly paying for multiple gym memberships to multiple gyms, and all that money is like coming out of my account every month, and I'm not using half of those memberships. So it's like your decisions and how you live daily can like impact the long term, like whether it's financially or just like with your health, and all of it is connected. So like the mindset that you have to have as an adult, and especially when you're young, is like, am I setting myself up for success in the future? Am I setting my future family up for success by choosing this lifestyle or choosing to handle my money like this. And like, you actually have to think and realize that like you are in control when you get to that point of independence, especially in college where maybe you're a little bit back and forth from mom and dad's house to your house or your dorm or your apartment at school. It's like you are impacting yourself and others daily more than you know, and you have to be able to make decisions that are going to help you in the long run. And if you don't, like, you have to face those consequences and then figure out how to, work around it and get creative, like maybe change a few things with your habits or how you're spending your time, how you're spending your money, like stuff like that. And like, we don't talk about that stuff enough. We don't talk about lifestyle decisions. We don't talk about decisions in general in college. And then you get to your mid-20s and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Or like, why did I live like that? Why did I start this habit? Because now it's eating into your success, like in general in the future when you are trying to get serious about things. And I mean, this is a conversation I've had with some friends who might be trying to figure it out, or, they're really struggling with whether it's finances or just like bad habits they created as underclassmen, trying to shake that because they're like, wait, we're about to graduate. Like, we need to get our shit under control, like, essentially. And that's another piece that people need to talk about that more with our incoming freshmen, with kids who are graduating high schools. Like, truly, like, you are setting yourself up for success, failure, or just being an in-between, and you're going to have to deal with that as an adult. And obviously every day is a learning game, and you're going to get better at handling certain situations and handling those decisions. But it's all interconnected, and that needs to be stressed too. Is like, hey, when you choose this, it impacts this, this, and this, and this. So, try to be wise. And if you mess up, like, your 20s are the time to mess up. But yeah, kind of went off on a tangent there, but
no, I like it. And I can honestly, I'm a firsthand like account of like when it comes to tobacco and alcohol, like not bad or anything, but like what I did after, it was my first year after college. And that winter, I went into January, like New Year's. It was like a New Year's resolution, but not a New Year's resolution in a way. It was like I told myself for a month, no tobacco, like no nicotine, and no alcohol. And it's crazy how much money you will save if you do that for a month. It makes you open your eyes, and also like it saves you from going to that gas station just to get a case of beer or whatever. And then when you're there, how many times do you, I'll get a Monster, I'll get a, or I'll get like whatever. You buy like 6 different things. All of a sudden it's like $10 a day. Like that was my boss told me one time, because I used to drink 2 Monsters a day and get a can of chew. And like, he finally told me, he was like, dude, think about this. How much money do you spend every day at the gas station? I'm like, I don't know, like $10. And he's like, do the math. Do the math. $50 a week times 4 for the month. I'm like, holy crap. He's like, now do the year. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to do this. This is looking bad.
Exactly.
But like it makes you open your eyes when you finally take that step back. Like, wow, like I could save a lot of money if I didn't go to Wendy's, if I didn't go get a case of beer, if I didn't do this. Like, you have to think about that.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I also have experience with that. I think as an underclassman, moving out at 18, like I was pretty sheltered as a teenager and like had really strict parents. So when I came to OU, it was like a field day. And I was trying to figure all this out, but like also I was like, oh, I'm free. Like, I'm going to go have fun. And looking back, like I had a serious drinking problem my first semester of college. I mean, I'd say most college kids do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd probably was the same way.
Yes, like I would say most of us do, just because like it's like this whole new world, right? And you have no one telling you what to do, no one holding you accountable. Now my thing that I didn't realize at the time and was kind of oblivious to is like I had a lot to lose if I got caught. I had a full right to lose. So like kind of stupid. Really stupid actually, to try to, go sneak around into bars as a 18, 19-year-old with no experience and with alcohol, and kind of pushing the limit way too many times. But I eventually, probably after that first semester, COVID hit not too long after that. And it was like, that was a whole new thing. And kind of had to be like, hey, like, wow, like I was really spending a lot more time drunk and a lot more time drunk than sober, and not sleeping, trying to work, trying to do school. I was performing well in school, so like I think that's why I didn't really think it was a big deal then. But the money thing, that was a big thing. And when I started to get more bills, it was like, oh wow, like yeah, this is not the lifestyle that like I want to live. Like my friends might be doing it, but like I'll be the one that will go to bed and be the mom, and if anyone needs like a ride home, like I'll go help them out. But it took a few pretty scary wake up calls for me to get to that point. Like my first semester of college, I ended up in the ER from alcohol poisoning pretty quickly, and didn't realize that I like kind of had a problem. And like even if most of my friends were drinking just as much, if not more than I was, my body was not used to that at all. Like it was like in shell shock. And it was kind of like through that, and then also realizing like, hey, like you could lose your scholarship if you get caught. Like I don't think it's worth it. Kind of like forced me to like grow up in that aspect pretty quickly. And then now I'm like a 22-year-old and like a 42-year-old's mindset at home and in bed by like 10, 11 or doing homework at that time. But I think experience is the best teacher, especially when you're in those late teens, early 20s, and it's okay to mess up. It's okay to learn through those experiences and learn what not to do and how you don't want to live, so that you can, be able to lead and help other people who might be in the same boat as you later in life, or just, get wiser, like grow, learn. And like, that's what life is about. Kind of like we've touched on before, is just like rolling with the punches, even if you've kind of been the one to punch yourself, being able to recover from that and move forward. Like that's comes from experience, and sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's not. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either of us are saying like, hey, don't go out to the bars
no,
and drink
no,
ever. Don't go have fun with friends ever. Go
no.
have fun. Just
Yes.
learn to control yourself.
Learn to control yourself and not do everything in complete excess.
Yes.
And obviously, like, it's okay. Like, again, no one's perfect. Like, so many. I could sit here and talk about all of my dumb stories. But I've had a lot of fun, and I've met some of the best people in my life, like in college, and we've all grown together. We've all learned what to do, what not to do, how to strike that balance in moderation, or just do more fun things like sober, because that's actually possible. Like, as an underclassman, probably don't think like that, but like it's possible to like have lots of fun and like have good conversations and stuff, like without being like out in the party scene. And that's another thing, like being at OU is like the bar and party scene is like really, really, really like over kind of advertised in a sense. And so it's like when you realize like, oh wait, there's like more to do here than that, or like there's more to life than like being blackout drunk. Like you can actually experience a lot of really cool things on the other side of the spectrum, and still have just as much fun, and still be able to, go have a drink with your friends or go party, do whatever you want to do in moderation. Like it's like finding the balances, I think, is a part of growing up, and finding a balance with having fun and also like pursuing your goals and like pursuing other things in life that might take a little bit more effort on the serious side of things. Like finding a balance in everything is key, and that's one of the hardest parts of life, honestly, is trying to balance all that stuff.
That's one of the questions I was going to ask you, because like you mentioned, your intro of who you are. How do you balance things? Because you have so much going on nonstop. How do you balance it?
So the first thing that comes to my head when you ask that is I don't. And that's just a raw and honest answer, and people listening to this in the future are probably be like, what? Like, hold on, you're talking about balance, and then you say you don't balance it. I'm still trying to figure that out. So I'm gonna get into some of the deep stuff of the past year of my life and like what I kind of touched on in the intro. But I would say up until my junior year of college, so that was over a year ago now, but up until my junior year, so like 21 years old, I was the type to be super, black and white, on top of things, planning, like had like 3 calendars, a whiteboard, and a planner, all with like the same structured days laid out, planned. Everything was like super, super, super organized, right? And the start of my junior year, everything kind of blew up in my face. I got out of a very serious 3-year relationship, did not see the end of that coming like at all. So that was kind of shocking. And honestly kind of had an identity crisis at that point. And then probably maybe like 2 months after that ended, I had a really serious and severe basketball injury that also came out of the blue. And that had me bedridden for a while, and I was in a boot cast thing all semester. And at the same time, I was taking 23 credits and was commanding our battalion in ROTC. And all of that happening, and also trying to work part-time, trying to do a little bit of photography, was like, it just literally, like, everything blew up in my face. And it put me on my butt so much to where I had to completely change my perspective on life, how I handled things, kind of mature and grow in a way that I had never really been forced to do yet. And I had to kind of take a step back, and I was literally forced to slow down, like emotionally, mentally, physically, all of the above, forced to slow down and almost stop with everything. And, through that process, I got a lot more serious in my faith. I honestly developed some of the deepest friendships that I've ever had in my life. And I think when you're pushed down to a point like that, where everything that you are and that you've known yourself to be and that you've wanted to be is taken away from things that you can't control, kind of like you talked about, you're humbled a lot. And what I'm getting at is I essentially had to I just changed a lot. And my perspective on what was important to me, what was important of trying to control to me, just wasn't as relevant anymore. So I didn't feel like I needed to control everything. I didn't feel like I needed to have a black and white plan for everything anymore. I felt like because all that stuff happened all at once, and there were a few other things sprinkled in there that were really hard. And also, being independent and being alone and not being close with my family, that was another aspect that was really hard. Like, I was completely isolated and alone and super honestly angry at first of why all these things were happening to me at the same time. I had to learn how to pivot from that and be able to give the things that I was involved with at the time 110% effort, while also realizing that I didn't even have 110% effort in me at that time. Like, physically could not even stand on 2 feet. It was my ankle that I basically literally turned it into mush. So I couldn't shower on my own. I couldn't get up the stairs on my own. I couldn't drive, couldn't walk, nothing. And for someone who's always on the go, that was awful. I felt like I was trapped in my own body. And then also getting out of that relationship, not having the support of a family, having so many responsibilities with the Army ROTC program, and then also taking 23 credits. It was whoa, this is a lot. And from that point on, this is now about 1.5 years from all of that happening, a year-ish. I look at life from a perspective of, if I'm giving 110% effort into everything, there's nothing left. And I want to be able to balance it to a point where I can give effort one day to something and give effort to another something another day. And so now at this point, I've kind of changed my work ethic in a sense where I'm not running on empty anymore. I'm taking more time to invest in things that long term are going to set me up for success. And that includes, getting away every once in a while, having healthier coping mechanisms, having deep friendships, having a really awesome faith in God. And that's been pretty transformative too. But I am still trying to figure out what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to prioritize? Because with all that stuff happening, it kind of showed me you cannot give 110% sorry, I can't talk. 110% effort into a bajillion different things at once and something not give. So I'm not saying be lazy and don't work super hard in the things that you're involved in. Be realistic. Before you do 1,000 different things at once, try to give 110% effort into those 1,000 different things, and then something blow up in your face, whether it's your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, your friendships, your family, other responsibilities that you have. Like, I'm in a point now where I'm realizing I have to be able to only commit to things that I know I can handle instead of just trying to do everything at once and failing because it's too much. And I never thought that I would be the type of person to say that you can do too much because, I mean, as you can tell, I do a lot at once. But it has also come to the point where I've realized through experience and through some really tough things happening that I can't control, you can do too much at once. And you're never going to find a balance if you're trying to overcommit yourself, overbook yourself, instead of being realistic in the first place. I don't think that really answers the question black and white, but it does explain, like, I'm at a point where I've realized I've done too much at one time, and am now kind of realizing that that's, life is not about overworking yourself. Like, work really hard, give 110% effort, but be realistic with yourself, because there are going to be things that happen that you cannot control. And if you are already maxing yourself out to complete exhaustion, you are going to fail. And, like, being someone who's definitely an overachiever, who is very black and white, who works her ass off all the time in everything that I do, and is so passionate about that. It's almost hard for me to say that, like, to find a balance, you have to kind of take a step back. And I am still working on the whole balance part. Still trying to figure out what that looks like for me. That doesn't involve putting myself or my family or my friendships or relationships or business into a crappy spot because I'm trying to overcompensate for something else. I don't really know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like a really detailed explanation, but it's like a lot at the same time. So if you want to dissect that, go ahead and try.
Well, one of the things that I feel like you did a really good job of, and sometimes it takes, like, these events, these learning experiences, they're not failures. They're not things that you can, we might sit there and ask why, but they're really learning experiences. That's one of the things that we talk about on this podcast a lot. You didn't fail. You learned. You looked at, you kind of got into a point to where there's pillars to your health. There's your mental health, your physical health, spiritual health, financial health. I believe there's another one technically, or at least some of the people that I listen to, that's what they talk about. But those four right there, especially, are, things that we've talked about a lot on this podcast so far. And it's like, if you're giving 110 to everything you do, the fact of the matter is, the next thing you're doing that day, you may be giving it all that you have, but it's only 109% at the max. Like,
Exactly.
you're losing a little bit to the next point. Like, if you're going 110 all the way, and it is important to work your ass off and to be, try really hard, but you have to, like, you can't run yourself to zero, like you talked about, to where you literally couldn't physically stand. But, like, what I mean? Like, you're working so hard that you're mentally, physically exhausted. You cannot forget about it. It mentally will break you down.
Yeah.
I think you went through it a little worse than I did after hearing that, but, like, we all have those moments that, like, we're mentally exhausted.
Yes,
Being mentally exhausted is one of the hardest things. It sucks. Mental health is tough, and being mentally exhausted is tough to deal with, but, like, we run ourselves in mentally exhaustion sometimes.
Yes, exactly. And that too, like, it leads to burnout. And when you're burnout, you're not going to perform well anyway. So, like, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation. It looks like a win at first because you're like, oh, I'm doing all these things at once. I'm giving 110% effort, but that, like you said, something is suffering. Something is really suffering. And when you get burnout, or you're at the point where this is not even, like, I feel like this is more of a chore for me to give this effort to versus a passion, you're doing yourself and the people that you are trying to work with or serve dirty. And that is one of probably the toughest things that I have learned through experience in the past year and a half, is even if, like, it might look good on the surface that I'm doing all these things at once and I'm trying to give 110% effort, there is some piece of my life or the things that I'm doing that is suffering because I'm trying to do too much. And, those pillars, like, they all have to be stable enough to stand, or the house is going to fall over. And that is truly like a life lesson that you do have to learn through experience sometimes. And I mean, I know one of my best friends, who happens to be my sister, she's very different than I am, and sometimes she is so bored that she asks me what she can do, what should she be doing. She's a few years younger than us, and I'm like, well, like, do things you're passionate about, but like, you need to be doing something. So like, there's another aspect of this is like, don't not do anything because you're afraid of getting burnt out. Like, do what you can handle, and if that takes experience of one extreme of not doing enough or the other extreme of doing too much, you'll eventually figure it out, to a point of where you can truly like be productive, be happy, give back to people, lead and serve, and work really hard, but not at the expense of one of those things you're committed to or your own self. So I mean, that's something that has truly transformed the way that I see working, the way that I see business, the way that I see friendships and relationships, and even like how I deal with trying to take care of myself. But it took a really humbling and like shocking turn of events, I guess, in life to learn that. And you know, experience is the best teacher, like we've been talking about. So I would not trade it for the world. Like, it was probably one of the hardest seasons of life to go through, but it has led to so much growth and honestly a lot of success as well. So
What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are enjoying today's guest. I wanted to take a quick break and talk to you guys about how you can support the Roughnecks podcast. We recently had a merch drop with all new Roughnecks merchandise. There are new things available, such as a couple hunting shirts, some new hats, and even some new coffee cups. You can head over to roughneckspodcast.com to make your purchase. Christmas is coming soon, and there's nothing better to get your loved ones than some Roughnecks gear. Take yourself over to roughneckspodcast.com and use the discount code Christmas for 10% off your order. Let's get back to today's episode. No, one of the things that you just said there too, that I really like, was do something. That was something I learned actually, through my boss, which I talk about on this podcast a lot. I shouldn't give him that much credit. I don't even know if he listens, but I give him, the one thing that I remember him saying at work, we were standing there and I was just standing there. He goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just waiting for this to be done so I can do the next thing." And he's like, "There's always something that needs to be done, and you should never be standing around." And he wasn't saying it like trying to be mean or anything, like telling me, get your butt in gear. He was just kind of saying that. And that was the point where I also realized, there's always something that we can be doing to grow as ourselves in general. Like, I don't care if you just go read a book. Do something, if you go read a book, your mental health grows. Things grow. Go pick up a book, go to the gym, go walk around the neighborhood, go for a drive, go shopping. I don't care. Do something. There's something that you can do that will help you physically, mentally, in one of those pillars that it is very important to just do something. Figure something out.
Yeah, do something, and do something that gives back to you, because if you're constantly draining yourself and you're not refilling yourself back up, like, again, you're going to suffer, or something in your life is going to suffer as a result of that. And something that I feel like we don't talk about enough as a society is like the whole self-care concept. I think we're getting better at that, but like, we prioritize and glorify overworking, and this is something that I've done my whole life. Like, I beat myself up when I try to get back to myself. I beat myself up when I try to rest, but there is so much valuableness in, I don't even know if that's a word, but so much value in taking care of yourself and doing something, like you said, doing something that is good for you, whether it is a book or working out daily or fueling your body with something good, like those cookie cutter good habits. Like, it can truly make a huge difference each day. And that adds up to be each week and each month. And you grow because of that, and you are happier and healthier and more productive. So like, that's another big piece of this whole like life thing, that figuring that out, and once you do figure out what works for you, like, it can be a game changer for you and the people whose life that you're in as well. And you can fulfill yourself by giving back to others, by loving others. And the best way to be able to do that is when you are, you're good with yourself. Like, you got to be on top of things and healthy and like really taking care of yourself to be able to impact others, be able to love others, be able to serve others. And honestly, probably feel more fulfilled doing that anyway. So yeah, big believer in that. It's something I'm still working on and that I really struggle with, being such a type A personality and always wanting to work and give 100%, like, is also understanding that being able to do that and work that hard, you also have to be taking care of yourself. You can't just like work yourself into a pulp or just not be doing anything at all. So definitely like doing something and figuring out your something is going to make a huge difference in how you go about life. And then typically it's a positive difference. So that's always a good thing, right?
Exactly. And like sometimes you talked about, you have to be on, like, you have to have yourself good before you can like help others. Sometimes
Exactly.
you have to be selfish, and it is
Yes.
selfish in a good way, because you, like you said, you can't, be beneficial to other people if you're not even good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't have your stuff figured out, you have to be selfish sometimes and get. I just made an episode, one of the Fast Fridays recently was kind of about this. Like, one of the things is you have to be selfish and you have to beat yesterday you. Kevin Hart
Yeah.
talked about it. Beat yesterday you. And you know what? Don't try to beat anybody else. Don't try to be, all these other people. Be yourself. And every day, if you wake up and you beat the person that you were yesterday, if you're better than the person that you were yesterday, you are going to grow. Imagine how much you will grow in a year. Try not to take any step backs. Be yesterday you. Be better than you were before, the day before, and you'll just continue to grow.
Exactly. Huge belief.
But one of the things I wanted to get into talking about before we get, lost in this episode of all this great inspiration, but, you started a little photography business while in college. Tell us what it is and kind of how it started.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, I have a photography business, pretty simple. It's an LLC. I take pictures of, I do weddings, seniors, family portraits, studio stuff, lots of athletic work, which is probably where my heart's at, to be honest. Just all sorts of things. Don't really specialize in anything specific. I have always like had a creative side, and I guess stereotypically, I think people look at me and just see an overly confident, like, athlete looking type. I have good genetics, so I guess it makes sense. But I have this creative side that honestly is kind of a coping mechanism. So in high school, my stepmom had a few like really nice cameras. They were Canons. And I would just ask if I could borrow them and like started using them. Took a photography class in high school. It was like film though, so it was a little different than what I do now.
Like
And
no, don't tell me it was the old school film.
we had a dark room and everything, or whatever it's called, like with the boxes of liquid that you would develop the photography things in. I don't even know the proper terminology anymore,
Oh
but
man, I love it. I wish
yes,
they still had
so
some of that stuff, to be honest, because I found
cool.
I was helping my boss clean out a rental house that he has, and like
Oh,
I found some old film, like just like I held it up to the light and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, and he was like, if my kids picked this up, they wouldn't even know what to do with it. Like, they wouldn't know what it
yeah,
was.
it's
And I'm
a
like,
very interesting form of art.
it
And
really
that's
is.
things though, but now it's all digital. But yeah,
Yep.
so got into shooting, I guess, like shooting pictures in high school. But I've always had this creative side. So it wasn't really a new thing for me to like just express my creativity like through some sort of medium. And then got to a point where like as an upperclassman in high school, I was like asking my friends and their families, hey, like, do you want me to take like pictures of you guys for like Christmas cards? Little stuff like that. And then by the time I got to college, I didn't really focus on it at first. It wasn't really something I was, like super focused on. I mean, I was more interested in having a good time my first semester, like I mentioned. But then I was like, wait, if I get really good at this, like I could actually make a little bit of side hustle money on this. So I saved up and bought myself my own Canon EOS Rebel. It's like an entry level DSLR camera. bought myself a prime lens, which is just a nicer lens than the stock one that comes with it. And it was all used. So bought it super cheap off of like Macari or eBay or something like that. And I spent like my underclassmen years as a freshman and sophomore teaching myself manual. So like how to shoot everything in manual. So there's like automatic and manual cameras. Automatic is what most normal people use, but photographers typically use manual. So that's when you adjust like all the settings on your own based on lighting and shutter speed, stuff like that. It's honestly kind of like learning a new language, but like with your hands and being able to do it without thinking, like using a tool to like capture something. But anyway, got to the point where I was going back to Indiana on breaks and taking pictures of some of my buddies who coach basketball there, take pictures of them, take pictures of the athletes, post them on Instagram. They got a lot of traffic and I made a few bucks. And then I was like, okay, I feel like this whole sports photography thing is something I want to like continue to pursue. And I ended up selling that Canon once I taught myself full manual mode and bought a Sony A7 III, which is a $3,000 camera and shoots in 4K. And it has this like feature for videos, like where it will like lock on the subject's pupil and like follow them around. So like it's just really good for sports videography. And at the time, that's like I wanted to get into sports coverage because that's where a lot of money and like media attention is. It's either that or weddings. So I bought this camera, saved up for it, bought it. Super expensive, but still bought it. And that's like kind of when things took off. I started also getting really good at editing, using the editing software, which is through Adobe, and just getting a lot of traffic on my little Instagram that I had made where I like posted my work and getting more bookings. And then I like was like, okay, wait, this is going to turn into more of a side hustle. Like I need to, step up my game. Invested in a website, like someone made a website for me. The Instagram got a lot more popular, started making reels, and it just kind of grew. Like I just chipped away at it every day for years. And at first, like I never intended for it to get to a point where I could literally drop out of college and do this full time and live financially fine and stable and comfortable and be able to travel and meet new people and love what I'm doing. But the biggest thing is like it was never something that I was like super adamant about pursuing. Like I started doing it for fun. It was never like I want to start this business and make this amount of money. Like I was like, I enjoy doing this and it can make me a little bit of money. So, I'll charge some and I love doing it. And honestly, like this might sound horrible, but it started becoming more of a stressor the more that I charged people and the more business I was getting, because it was no longer a coping mechanism. It was a job. And I think something that I've realized like in the past season, fall is our busiest season as photographers, just because there's a lot of weddings and a lot going on. And this past season, like I kind of reevaluated things and I was like, I'm doing too much with this. Like it's so, it's more of a job than like a hobby at this point. And how can I make this job like more fun, more fulfilling, more productive for me and my clients? So like everything just, it didn't fall into my lap because I've been working at it, but it was never really my intent to like get to a point of being a really young and successful like entrepreneur. Like it was just a hobby that I worked really hard at and kind of a little dream that happened to one day get to a point of being more than a side hustle. And then this semester was not looking for a photography studio at all, was bored looking on Zillow listings one night, like literally, and somehow went down a virtual rabbit hole and found this photography studio. Well, not a photography studio, but a little studio on Court Street that was perfect to be a photography studio. And I ended up talking to the landlords of the building, and it was for rent, super affordable. And I signed on that, opened it up, had a few shoots in there. OU found out, wrote an article about it, and that also generated a lot more traffic. I had probably between 7 and 10 weddings that I shot in like a month and a half span this fall, and that was way too much. But it just literally is something that I chipped away at every day, and it kind of blew up over time. It was never a black and white plan of mine because it started off as a hobby. So that's it's a long story, but like looking back on it, it's kind of interesting how, that hard work every day and that passion just kind of ended up working out for like, I guess for me in a lot of great ways, but also like for my clients and stuff. And also just being a resource for people that might be looking into starting a little business so young and so inexperienced like in the field.
Yeah. There's two things that I really took away from. I can't believe I only took away two things, but those were the two things that I was thinking about. But two things that you really, that I'm going to re-stress is the risk. You're going to take risk as an entrepreneur, as a young person in general. Like, there's a lot of risks that are involved in, putting down rent for signing a contract to pay rent on this place to start literally like make your own studio. It could have like done the total opposite of what it did. It could have just went downhill and then you're out money. But like, you're gonna have to take those risks. And like you've talked to, like, you're a person that likes to get out of your comfort zone. Getting out of your comfort zone is very important. You have to take those risks. Taking those risks is out of our comfort zone. There's a reason it's called a risk. And being self-taught, like teaching yourself this whole thing. You could have, went to a bunch of photography courses or looked up a bunch of stuff online, which, well, I mean, we all look things up online, let's be real.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you could have done all this and then done it. But then, like, some of the people that are self-taught, I feel like know more than some of the people that, this is their degree, or like they have all these certifications. Like, you see it all the time with things. You have to be able to take the risk, because you never know what could turn out, like what could happen. And I heard you talked about it, became more of a job than a hobby. That's one of the things that, like, I see it. I'm a hunter, and like you see it a lot in the hunting world, where people fall out of love with hunting when it becomes a YouTube channel, or it's a podcast, all this stuff, because it turned. And I've experienced it with the podcast, where sometimes I'm like, man, this feels more like a job than a hobby. Like, because that's what it is for me. Like, I'm not in this to make money. I do this because I get to have really cool conversations with people, and there's a lot of people out there that I feel like their story should be shared. Like, they should talk. Like you example, like everybody that I've had on this podcast, there's a reason I've had them on there. It's because I find them inspiring. I see what they're doing, and I'm like, they need to talk about what they're doing. Like, they're a person that could inspire somebody else. And my whole thing is I don't care how many people listen to the podcast, as long as like one person from every episode gets something from it and grows from it, I'm good. That's all I need. But and then the other thing is, you didn't say it, but you kind of, I feel like, are getting to that point of being able to say no. And it's very hard, especially when it is your business. I watched it with my boss. I watched it, I've watched it with my brother. Like, I've watched it with a lot of people who are, in the business world, who have started their own business, whatever. It's like, being able to say no. You want to, like, a customer will come out and be like, I want to do this, this, and this. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can do that. But in your head, you're like, that is going to suck. I already have something to do that day. This is going to be like, you have to be able to be like, no, or be like, that's going to be an extra $300, whatever it is. It's very tough to do, but learning to say no can be very beneficial. Now, don't turn everything down, but
No,
you
of
have
course.
to know the things to say no to.
Exactly. And yeah, that definitely was something I was getting to, and something that I have recently like come to the conclusion, like, I need to get better at this, especially as a business owner. This fall, when I had that many weddings, and then I had, being a full-time student with that many weddings, traveling, I had ankle reconstruction surgery in August, was starting my final semester or fall semester of college in August, and an ROTC, and working these other jobs. Like, I was insanely overbooked, and like having a major surgery and being a full-time college student, like, those two things alone don't go together. And I had previously booked all of these weddings like a year prior. So like, I had no clue that I was going to have like all this stuff going on. But I was like, wait, at the time when I booked them, I was like, oh my gosh, like, all of these clients, that means money. Like, all these clients, that means money, that means free travel, that means, continuing to grow the business. Like, yes, 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 yes. And it didn't really start to cross my mind until after the fact that I was like, what was I thinking? Like, I was almost being too greedy in a sense, and like being, too enthusiastic to the point where I was like, wait, when it actually got to that point, I should have said no to some of these gigs and chose quality over quantity, or chosen, hey, if I'm going to do this and I have a wedding that week already, like, it's going to be extra money because this is taking so much out of my entire being personally already, and I have these 80,000 million other things going on. So something that's part of my 2023 approach of the business, and something that I'll be doing different, is choosing to work with less clients and take less bookings, but still make just as much money, if not more. So choosing quality over quantity, or maybe doing more long-term projects versus a bunch of like big weddings like every weekend, and maybe working more with local businesses or athletes. And it's like, it took that experience for me to realize, oh my gosh, like, there is a such thing as saying yes to too much at once, or not kind of compensating for that. And like that also, like, that aspect of not being able to say no, or not really realizing your worth. I think a little bit of it is an imposter syndrome, is be like, oh, like, I just need to work my butt off and get all these bookings so I can continue to grow, because they're not going to pay extra if I say, like, I have too much going on, you need to pay more. That's not true. If your clients like your work, or they want to work with you, whatever your business is, they will pay extra, and they will pursue you, and you will not have to like beg them to do that. And if you do, they're not a good fit for you, business wise. Like, it's just a fact. But learning to say no as a business owner, and just in life in general, is something that is so valuable, and that is really hard to do, especially if you are a people person, especially if you are an overachiever, especially if you just have a good work ethic. You want to perform, you want to, really give back, like, you want to be successful. So like, maybe for those personality types, it is a little bit hard sometimes. But then obviously, like, you don't want to say, like you said, you don't want to say no to everything because of, fear of failure, or fear of not living up to people's expectations, or not meeting your business goals, or struggling. Going back to the whole risk thing with the studio, when I found out about the studio being an option, I sat on it for a little bit, not very long, because I was like, this opportunity probably won't be around forever. But I was like, this could really blow up in my face financially. Like, this could not work. This could just be another bill that I have to pay and not really come to fruition. But it has been so beneficial, and it has worked, and it was worth the risk. And, in business land, especially being someone who's so young and relatively like inexperienced, I would say, still learning, you are going to take risks that sometimes do not produce fruit right away, or may never produce fruit, and might just be something that doesn't work, but it will teach you, like you said, like, you will learn. And then sometimes it might just take time. Like, every business is an investment. Everything that you start is an investment. I have put a ridiculous amount of money into photography over time. And like, obviously, like with the camera, like, that alone was a big purchase right off the bat, but I profited that money back quick enough to where it didn't really hurt me. And like, that was investment that could have failed. I could have not profited much back at all, to be able to feel okay financially after spending that much money on a camera. Like, you kind of have to play like weights and balances, or whatever the proper term is, and be able to take those risks, but also be able to say no. So it's like, you just have to figure that out, and realize, like, what are my values? What's important to me? Is this worth the risk? Like, it will impact this, and this. Like, should I go for it? My advice is go for it. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to learn. Even if you fail, you're going to learn something, even if it doesn't go as planned. And honestly, sometimes when it doesn't go as planned, better things happen. So it's in business land and in life in general, when you make those decisions, or you have the opportunity to make those decisions, go for it and pivot when you have to. And that's worked out in my little business venture. And it's worked out to a point where, like, even if I have struggled at times, it has always paid off in the long run so much. And yeah, so like, it's there's checks and balances. That's what I was looking for. Checks and balances.
Investing back, like, into yourself, into your like company. Like that is one of the biggest ways to grow, I feel like, as a, entrepreneur. That's one of the hardest things to do too, because, everybody looks at the entrepreneurship and starting their own business because it's so awesome and I get to make my own schedule, make my own money. Like all that money goes to me, but in reality, that's not how it should be. The
No.
best way to grow as an entrepreneur is take most of your money that you make, pay yourself, reward yourself, but invest it back into the company. I've watched it with a lot of different, small companies that, and I've seen both sides of it where, I'm in the like landscape type world of like manual labor. I put in pools and patios. That's kind of what we do. And I've seen companies that, the truck or the boss drives a really nice truck, but the employees have really crappy equipment. Things take longer to get done. Quality is less. On the other end, your boss drives a nice truck, but nothing crazy. Doesn't go buy a new one every year. You have really nice equipment. Quality is there. Like you have to look at. You can't like even if you're your own employee, you'll have no employees. You're your only person. Like you have to invest back in a company. Every money or every dime that I make off this podcast, which isn't a ton, because that's not my goal of this podcast, but every dime that I make I don't make any of it. Like I don't take any of it at this point. I mean, I might in the future, but not right now. Everything I do, I go buy new microphones. I go buy a new soundboard. I go buy everything I need to make the podcast better, because that's the best way to grow is to invest. Like your business is an investment. And instead of like taking that investment and then taking all that investment and just investing in yourself, invest it into the thing that can eventually make more money.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like playing the long-term game. And just, thinking about long-term, you might lose money while you're investing, but you're really not losing it. You're investing it. It's going towards making you more money in the future. So it is, playing the long game and trying to be wise with those decisions is definitely like a huge aspect of like the business portion side of things. So definitely something that's learned through experience too, and taking those risks and, learning to say no, balancing things, like all these things, they all tie together.
If there is one piece of advice that you could give to an entrepreneur, or somebody that's just started being an entrepreneur or wants to become an entrepreneur, like, is there one piece of advice? Like, if there's one thing that you could say, what would it be?
Okay, that's a hard question. I might have to think about this one for a second.
I know we always have like 30 or 0 also at the same time.
Yeah. I think the biggest piece of advice that I would probably harp on is to not get discouraged. And like that might sound really simple and that might sound really cheesy, but when you are going to try to pursue something from nothing, from literally like starting bare bones, like from scratch, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be a lot of things that are going to disrupt that process. There's going to be adversity. You're going to struggle. You might feel like you're hitting roadblocks and starting it. It is a financial investment. It's a time investment. It's a mental health investment. When you get discouraged, keep going. Keep showing up. Go one more. Kind of quoting a bunch of different people in what I just said, but it will not be smooth sailing like the whole time. And there will be times when you're burnt out. There'll be times where you'll be like, why am I doing this? What is the point when this, and this is not going as planned? It will come to fruition. If you keep chipping away at it every day and pursuing that goal, starting that business, putting in that effort and that time, something is going to happen. And it's probably not going to blow up right away. I think, maybe if you go viral on like TikTok or something for like starting your own restaurant, that's an example of where like things just blow up immediately with like really no long-term effort. But a lot of people that, write their own books, start their own business, whatever field it's in, they chip away at it for a long time. I mean, heck, like Steve Jobs was working at Apple forever until it like blew up, right? And that's because your work ethic and that time and that energy, it comes back to you, right? When you invest into this idea, just like the whole money thing, your time, your energy, your goals, like those are investments in life too. So when you start a business, do not get discouraged when you do not see results right away or even for an extended period of time. Because if you keep chipping away at it every single day, or at least just consistently, it doesn't have to be every day, consistently chipping away at it, your results will come, your business will come, your profit will come, you meeting your goals, even if they have nothing to do with money, like with you with the podcast, reaching people and impacting people and inspiring people, that has come for you because you've been doing it consistently, right? And whatever your goals are, just being consistent and not getting discouraged or knocked down when you don't see instant results or you have stuff hit the fan, like you might be struggling in whatever area of your life or just in the business aspect, that is what is going to lead you to success. It's not talent. It's not necessarily always a work ethic. It is consistency. Consistency and not getting discouraged when things do not go as planned and you don't see results immediately. That's like the biggest thing I could harp on. And probably what has like led to my success is like I've just been working a little bit at it like every day or every week for years, and like almost unintentionally, like I said earlier, like it was started off as more of a hobby, but I did it so consistently that it grew into something that was profitable, and has gotten more profitable over the years with more success and just with continued consistency in the field and like trying really hard to make it better every single day. So that's my little bit of advice, I guess, with that.
You need your own podcast.
It's on my goals list for the business this upcoming year. Is something that I'm actually looking into, like legitimately. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Don't overdo yourself, because trust me, it can sometimes overwhelm you, especially with all the things that you have going on. But you definitely could have your own podcast. And if I could give you one piece of advice, stick to one episode a week. Don't go to two. It's tough to do 2 episodes a week.
Okay, noted. Got it.
But we're gonna move into like the final segments of the podcast and start to wind down this podcast. And before we get into the last segment of the podcast, I have a question that I like to ask all of my guests, and it's a very fun question for me because I like to hear the responses, because I've had people from 18 years old on here to 50 some years old or whatever, however old they've been. But my question is, if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Okay. 16-year-old self, or just really any 16-year-old in general. I already mentioned the whole keep showing up, be consistent thing, so I'll deviate from that. Surround yourself with people who make you better. Surround yourself with people who make you better. Because there will be times, especially at 16, you're trying to fit in at that point in your life. You're trying to figure yourself out, trying to figure out who you want to be. You are only as good as the weakest link. That's something that we talk about a lot in the military. You're only as good as your weakest link. You're only as strong as your weakest link. It's the same goes for who you surround yourself with. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who don't really prioritize super serious things in life, or might be dragging you down in your decision making, or just in your productiveness, or in how you treat other people, you're only ever going to be at their level or lower. And I think one of the most inspirational things to me in my life from 16 on up, and one of the most impactful things, has been like the people that I have surrounded myself with, whether they were good or bad. For me and my productivity, they have had the biggest impact. And there has also been a lot of periods of time in my life, and especially as a young adult, where I have been very isolated and very independent and very alone, because I have struggled, I think, to find people that I feel like bring out the best in me and don't distract me or don't take me away from what I'm trying to pursue. So, I would tell my 16-year-old self, surround yourself with people that you look up to, that you want to be like, that you want to get on their level, whether it's because of how they treat other people, how successful they are, their work ethic, their character. If you surround yourself with people who are better than you, you are going to grow and get better. And that's been something that has just drastically changed like the past year and a half, 2 years of my life as a college student is choosing to seek out people and surround myself with people who may be in a better position than me, or they are somewhere, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, that I want to be, that I'm working towards. I know that they can mentor me and lead me and help me. And any 16-year-old that can find people that can take them to the next level of where they want to be, that is going to just inspire them and help them grow in ways that they are not going to be able to do on their own. Finding a good mentor kind of ties in with that, or mentors, just people that can lead you and that can love you, and that can help you grow. Like it's so powerful. There's so much power in that, especially people who've like maybe been in your shoes and understand the goals you have on a more personal level. It is one of the most powerful things that you can do in life, is to surround yourself with people that can help you be better.
We had a saying in college, and it was one of the first things that we learned in one of the first team meetings, and it's very specific because it's mainly for the freshmen. As I played football in college at Ohio Wesleyan, so it was like you go into a team meeting, and like the first team meeting, that's one of the things that they talked about is we had y'all, which is you are who you associate with.
Yes.
And like that is like if you it's the same thing as you want to see who you are. Who are your 5 closest friends? That's the type of person you are. What are your 5 closest friends doing? That's who you are. You're gonna end up being just like them, like because you associate with them. That and you do transform into that. And sometimes you have to cut people out of the equation, and it's tough.
Mhm.
It can be
That's why.
tough. It may be your best friend from 3rd grade, but if they're not growing and you are, and you're trying to become better, and they're out partying every weekend and doing whatever at OU or whatever it is, and you might have to cut them out, and it's tough,
Yeah.
but it might be life changing to do that.
It truly is. And I mean, after my whole, season of being single for the first time since I was 18, and then getting really hurt and being super isolated, not being close to my family, like I was really alone at that point in time. And I had a lot of like great friends that I had kind of grown up with through ROTC. Like we spend literally 24/7 with each other. But I also was at a point where I was like, I don't want to necessarily associate with my peers that I love dearly who are out every other night. Like I'm not about that life anymore. Like I want to be with people who are bringing me to the next level in all areas of my life. And it took a hot second for me to connect with those people, but when I did, I mean, it truly like has changed me for the better, and has allowed me to also feel more fulfilled and being able to lead them as well, like in areas of their life that like I might be able to help with. And you're completely correct. Like you are who you associate with, and those people, those closest people to you, will make or break who you are and your success and your happiness and your productivity. And it's just so important. It's such an important concept, especially when you're young and you're getting out of college into the professional fields. Some people are getting married. We're all in different areas of our lives in our 20s. But if you can surround yourself with people that are selfless and loving and work hard and prioritize things that you want to prioritize, you are going to get better, and you are going to grow so much and be just more happy, successful, and be able to get back to others in a better way. So yeah, super, super powerful concept.
Definitely, and I think that's the perfect point to move us into the best segment of the podcast, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation
Yes.
Monday is the point in the episode where I allow the guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
All right, Motivation Monday. Is it Motivational Monday or Motivation Monday?
Motivation Monday.
Motivation Monday. Okay. How can I tie everything together? All right, Motivation Monday. My piece of motivation is going to come in like a couple different points. So I'm going to try to put it all together nicely and package it up for you. So, number one, your circumstances, whatever you come from, whether it is a broken home, addiction, you struggle with things, you don't have good relationships, your health is bad, whatever adversity or circumstances you come from does not determine where you will go. Let me say that again. What you come from does not determine where you go. You control where you go. And being able to actually understand that and believe in it is going to take you from your circumstances and what you come from and the adversity that you're dealing with to where you want to be. That's number one. Number two, you are who you surround yourself with. That's pretty black and white, but being able to have a support system, a community, a group that truly inspires you and pushes you to be the best version of you is going to take you leaps and bounds forward. It is not going to bring you backwards. It's not going to make you feel guilty about what you're doing, how you're spending your nights, how you're spending your free time. You are going to feel fulfilled. You're going to feel more productive, and you're going to be more successful if you have a community that truly wants what's best for you and they are living the life of where you want to be, or they're behaving how you want to behave. Quality of your friends and the people you surround yourself with is so important. Number three, even if you are blood with someone, it does not mean that you have to have a certain type of relationship with them. That's kind of an off-topic thing, but I think maybe some people could put dots together. But me moving out at 18 was a choice I made because of a pretty broken family. And I honestly have experienced some of the most unconditional love and best advice and support from people who are not even related to me by blood. And the point I'm trying to make is you can be related to someone and it not be the healthiest relationship for you to be involved in, or you could even be in love with someone and it not be the healthiest relationship for you to be involved with. So something really important to understand just as an adult in general is you're allowed to set boundaries with people that you're related to or that you are in a relationship with to protect yourself. And being able to set those boundaries, being able to say no, being able to distance yourself from people that you may be related to or that you love that might not be good for you, is really going to make or break how you handle other aspects of life, how you love other people, how you work with other people, and just making sure that you don't feel guilt about setting those boundaries for your own sanity, for your own future self sanity. That's just something too that it's kind of a tough concept, but you are in control of your life in terms of who you surround yourself with, who you have relationships with, and that includes your own blood and people that you love. Gotta be selfish sometimes and choose, what's best for you in your future so that you can be the best version of you so that you can give back. Last piece of advice for Motivation Monday is to learn how to love others unconditionally. Probably a sappy note to end on, but this world has a lot of brokenness in it. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of pain. And if you can figure out what love means to you, what it looks like to you, and how to give that to other people on a level that transcends the norm, on a level that kind of maybe even shocks them because they're not used to experiencing that type of love, you can change someone's life just by how you treat them, if that's rooted in love. And that might look different in different situations. It might just mean being more selfless on a day-to-day basis, or just looking out for people, asking them how they're doing, trying to be more involved in the community, just learning how to love people unconditionally, whatever that looks like for you. Giving 110% effort into loving others is going to make a true impact, and it is going to probably change the way that you see life. And you will know that you're doing that when other people compliment you or maybe give you some sort of reassurance that the way that you're loving them and the way that you're serving them is changing their life. So that's my Motivation Monday. kind of all over the place, but I've been all over the place the whole time. So I hope that was entertaining enough.
It just might be the best Motivation Monday yet, to be honest. I mean, you're making it really difficult to come up with a title for this podcast, this episode, because there's a lot of different titles that I could go with, and I got to choose the best one. But I honestly, like, it's been such a great episode that, like, you've made so many great points, and you truly are an inspiration to me, to like to a lot of people, I guarantee, listening. Like, you've gone through a lot from the sounds of things. You've worked your butt off to get to where you are, but like, it just, I don't even know what to say. Like, you had a lot of good points throughout this entire episode, and you truly, that's why I said you need your own podcast, because you truly, I feel like, are one of those people that can spread not only your own knowledge, but bring a lot of people on, and like, not like get them to open up in a way, but honestly, get them to open up and get those conversations out of them, because you make people think about, not like in a bad way, am I doing enough, but like, I should be doing more. Like, I can, like, you push people, you motivate people, and it truly is awesome. I'm so glad that I got to have you on the podcast. I truly do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I'm so, like, that was so much fun. I'm absolutely honored. Like, love the podcast, love supporting it. Honestly, don't even know how I found you, but I've been following for a hot second. So
I believe actually the way you found me might have been Jacob Varvel.
Yeah, I think I stumbled upon like his video, and then I was like, oh wait, this is super cool, and like started watching and listening. Like, it's great. I love it. It's come full circle. Like, I cannot wait to come back.
Oh, you definitely will be back. We'll be talking about that off air, but I got some things in mind. But I truly do appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you and your business and everything on social media?
So my photography business name is actually under the Indie Rose. So if you search the Indie, INDY, Rose, Lens, LENS on Instagram, that's my Instagram for photography specifically. I am booking for spring. I don't have a lot of availability left, but like, seniors this spring will be a big gig that I take on. So if anyone needs pictures, like, let me know. I travel like all over for photography, like internationally actually, so literally wherever. And then obviously my name's Carissa Nickell. I have like my own profile too, keep them separate, but Instagram's my main social media for photography. That's just where most of my traffic comes from. And then Facebook, it's the same. The Indie Rose is the brand name. So yeah, just look for that there. Definitely moving in a new direction creatively, and we'll be focusing more on Southeast Ohio and like rural women's sports specifically moving forward. And probably will be titling like that sector of the business. It'll be called It's Game Day Sis. And like, if I ever start a podcast, I might call it It's Game Day Sis, like with a comma after game day. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, so either one of those on Instagram, that is the tea, I guess.
Definitely go follow her and support her. You won't miss out. You might even find a video of Carissa working out wearing a Roughnecks podcast shirt. Definitely go like that video as well.
Yes, sir.
But I really do appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have you back on in the future. But a few closing things real quick. Don't forget about the merch drop. There was definitely there's a bunch of new merch out there. You can find that on roughneckspodcast.com. This is episode 135, so we are approaching episode 140, which is Q&A Friday. Send in questions. These questions can be about literally anything and everything. Send in those questions to roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. And until Monday. Nope, until Friday. There we go. Until Friday, you guys know the deal. Life is hard, and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. If you liked today's episode, then please be sure to share it with a friend. You can follow the Roughnecks Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Roughnecks Podcast. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some Roughnecks merch. Until next time, make sure you grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.